Hi, I'm Will Adams, and this is Honey Brook Tools and Woodworks. This is part 2 of my video on the Honey Brook Winding Sticks. If you haven't watched part 1, I would encourage you to go back and check that out first. In that video, I discuss my wood choices, how I lay out my winding sticks, and some of the considerations that I think about when I'm making these. In today's video, I'm going to start to clean up this stick, which yes, in the first video I installed this siding inlay, and then we're going to dive in and I'll show you how I cut the mortises to receive the two smaller siding inlays that will go on this winding stick. So let's get started. So the first thing that needs to happen before I put any tools to this winding stick is to make sure that my plane iron is sharp. So before I recorded, before I did anything, I pulled the iron out and honed it and stropped it, and it is good to go. Needless to say, sharp tools are really just imperative to making your woodworking more enjoyable and providing, you know, the kind of surface that you want in your work. It's all that more important when you're working with a figured wood like this koa. So I'm just going to take a couple strokes to smooth this out a little bit, and then we'll jump into the second stick that we're going to work on today. One thing that I didn't note, look at that. One thing I didn't note in the first video is when I go about laying out the inlay, I need to make sure that the inlay and the grain of the stick itself are going in the same direction. Otherwise, again, particularly with curly figured woods, things can get ugly fast if you've got your inlay going in one direction and the primary wood going in another. But we're good to go here. And nothing beats, in my mind, a plain surface. It just it brings out the chatoyance of the figure in the wood, and I just think it provides a great surface for applying your finish. In this case, my finish is going to be shellac. Actually, I always use shellac. So that stick we're going to set aside for right now, and its mate is going to be the prime attraction today. And I'm going to move the camera around a little bit, and then I'm going to show you how I lay out actually, first I'm going to cut the inlays, and then I'll show you how I lay them out, cut the mortises, and then install the siding inlays. Be right back. Okay, so I've gathered together all the tools that I'm going to need to inlay these siding inlays. First thing that I need to do now is to actually cut the inlays. And I didn't mention yesterday, but I like to, whenever I can, I cut the inlays from the same piece of wood. So the piece that I used for this is the same piece that I use for these, just for consistency of the grain and color. I might be overthinking it, but that's what I do. So, and as I also mentioned, I need to be mindful of the grain direction. So the grain in this koa is going that way, and the grain in this curly maple is going that way. So I've got this little, not even a miter box, it's like a miter shelf. Nothing terribly exciting, but it works. That's all that matters. So I'll go ahead and just cut these really quickly. There's one. Whoops. And excellent. Okay, so there's my two smaller siding inlays that are going to go into this second stick. So set that aside. So now I just need to lay these out. And I'm going to bring the camera in a little bit closer so that you can see my hands at work. Okay, so again, I've got all the tools laid out that I'm going to need to inlay these two siding inlays. I've got 3 chisels, I've got my marking gauge, I've got my bench mallet, I've got a router plane, 6-inch rule, did I say marking knife? I've got marking knife, and my block plane. So I do this the same way every time. I just think when you develop a habit of doing things, it starts to become a little bit second nature. So I just come in here, and the siding inlay itself is an 1.5 inches long, and it comes in 1.5 inches from the edge of the stick. So I just carefully mark each end. And this is one of my marking knives that I make. The nice thing about this blade, it's a dual bevel blade, so you can use it as you just saw me use it, right-handed, and then you can register the back of the blade up against this side, so you can use it either left-handed or right-handed. So once I've done that, I put that up there so I know that that one goes here, and then we'll come over here, do the same thing again. Just okay. So once I've marked the outer edges, I've got my marking gauge. This is another tool that I make. I'll do a video on these at some point. Just a quick description. It's got the classic shape, the shape of the fence is kind of a classic design, but it's got a modern circular cutter. What I like about these is it gives you a nice large reference surface with the precision of a round cutter. So I have preset that to be the width of the siding inlay, and I'll come here and go like this. So that marks the bottom of the inlay. And then I've got my router plane set to the thickness of the inlay, and I can use this as a marking gauge and just draw it down here. Okay, and then okay. So now I've got all my layout done, and now it's just a matter of chopping out the waste so that these can be inlaid. So I'm going to start doing that, and I'll be back and show you how I inlay them. Okay, so I've chiseled and routed out the little mortises to accept these siding inlays. I've double checked it to make sure that there are no gaps and we're in good shape. So my method for gluing these in is the same as for the long inlay, as I showed you in the first video. Just put a little bit of tight bond in here. And then painter's tape. So I'll let this cure for a couple hours, And then the next step in this whole process is I put center markers in each one of the winding sticks, just a 3/8 inch brass center marker. That way, when in use, it's easier for the woodworker to center the stick on the board that they're flattening. So we'll let this sit for a while. Next step is to drill the holes for those center markers, install the center markers, and then after that, I'll cut the taper into both of the winding sticks. And then we're pretty close to the finish line, literally and figuratively, because at that point, once the taper is in and I have checked all the measurements and planed all of it smooth, then it's ready for shellac. So we'll let this cure for a little while and then we'll come back to it. Right, so I've drilled the holes for the center markers, and now it's simply a matter of driving them into place and then filing them flush with the tops of the sticks. So I just put a little drop of CA in here. I don't know that it's necessary, but it's what I've always done. Oops. Okay, so then into the vise. And start filing. I should mention that before I did this, I planed the surface of the front of each one of these winding sticks, because once this brass is in, there's no more planing involved. I can scrape it. I can use a card scraper, but I like the surface that the plane leaves. So I'm going to keep doing this, and once I've got these both filed down flush, I'll come back and finish up. So that's me done with the siding inlays and the center markers. So we are getting closer. So in part 3, I will cut in the tapers to both of these. I do that on the table saw for efficiency's sake, but then I will plane the back smooth. Once that's done, I will double check all the measurements to make sure that they are square, parallel, and good to go. And once that's done, once I'm satisfied with that, I will plane in the chamfers on the edges, and I'll break the long edges. I cut myself on one of them, so I'll break those, and then they'll be ready for shellac. So I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for part 3. If you did like this, please click like and subscribe and tell all your friends about the channel. Thanks for watching.